Let's just do it.
Yeah. Welcome everybody. For those who don't know me, I am Celeste Brito. I am Portuguese. I am currently the director for Europe and Middle East for IAF. It's a pleasure to have you all with us. It's our 7th talk from 8 that we decided to do, and we didn't know how it would build along the weeks, but it's really amazing how we are getting even more connected and how powerful the conversations and the talks have been in the last sessions as well. So IAF is the International Association for Facilitators. We are currently around 2,000 members, and in Europe and Middle East, we are 600 members currently, which is a wonderful number. These talks are given, are hosted, are facilitated by members of IAF, and it's open to all community, members and non-members. So it's a privilege to welcome in this call today by Martin. Martin is a CPF and he's been a member for how many years, Martin?
8 years, 8.5, yeah.
Yeah, and you've been also an RD for Europe, right?
I was indeed, from 2013 to 2015, so 3 years. So 3 wonderful years, 3 very busy years as well. Yeah.
So wonderful. And it's a pleasure to have you here, and thank you for offering this talk.
My pleasure.
And you're going to take us on a journey how to discover our highest possibility with Theory U, which is an amazing topic. And allow me to tell you that unfortunately, I won't be here today with you during the whole session. I have other commitments, but I'm sure that you'll enjoy it. It will be a wonderful learning experience and a sharing of this topic. So welcome, and Martin, now it's for you.
Very good, thank you. And Raina, perhaps you would like to say a word or two, because we're co-facilitating this session. So I'm presenting and co-facilitating, and Raina, you're co-facilitating with me. Perhaps you'd like to say a word.
Yeah, actually, hello to everyone again. And if you have any questions, and if you don't see when you raise your hand, please enter in the chat box so that I can warn Martin about those. And enjoy it. It's going to be great.
Very good. Very good. So yeah, any technical questions or anything else, we'll be doing this together, and Raina will help me keep an eye on time. We have an hour and a half. In fact, 5 or 10 minutes less than that, because Raina, I'll pass back to you at the end and you will close. And we're going to record this session. Do we have the recording? Yeah, we have the recording on now, and this will be made available on the IAF site. So it'll just be available to IAF members, but it won't be available more broadly. What goes in the chat will not be made available, so you can write what the hell you like in the chat, but anything that you say on the video may be seen by others, so just be aware of that. So we want to create a sense of safety here, because this is something... Hello, whoever that was. Hello, whoever that was from wherever that was. Yes. So we want to create some safety here, because this is a subject which can touch us personally as well as professionally. And that's one of the reasons that it really strikes me and engaged me in the first place. And I'll tell you my story about it in a moment. But let me first of all just run you through what we're going to be doing. We're arriving, which we're doing right now. We have a little bit of a hello in a moment. I'll tell you about that. And then I'm going to just take you to a moment when I first got in contact with Theory U and the Presencing Institute. Step in. I'll tell you about that in a moment. Then where you see these things which have got a gold color around them, that's where I'm giving some input. Where you see things that are green, this is where I'm asking you to do something. So yes, this is a talk, but it's also to be engaging. So I invite your full engagement as well in this session, so that we can really learn together. So we'll be asking for some comment and input at this point, and then we'll be going to a second element of Theory U, and then we'll go into groups, probably triangles, depends on the numbers, but probably threes will be in groups. Then a third level of input around listening, and then some reflective, where are we? There we go. Reflective questions and farewell, and then we get to the point of seeing the nice sunflower, which I brought specially for this occasion, because just this morning it came out, so I thought I have to bring it in here so I can share it with you. So first of all, let's arrive. And I thought the way we would do this, I'm going to count to 3, 1, 2, 3. And when I count to 3, I want you just to say the place that you're in and just shout it out. Just the place that you're in, the city, the village, the town, could be the country. It's entirely up to you. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3.
Portugal.
Okay, let's try that again. I want to hear that louder. Okay. Okay, I want to hear that. 1, 2, 3.
India.
India.
India, I heard that. Okay, thank you. Okay, now think of the first letter of that place that you've just shouted out. The first letter. And think, what is the first place that comes to your mind that also starts with that first letter? And then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 and ask you to shout that out. Are you ready? The first place that comes to your mind. 1, 2, 3. Let's hear it.
Portugal.
Let's do that again. And again, you could the same one. 1, 2, 3.
Istanbul.
Heard Lebanon in Istanbul. I didn't hear all the others. Now let's pause a moment. Why have I asked you to do this? Well, on the one hand, because it's quicker than asking everybody to check in individually, but also because it speaks to the subject that we have today. Because where you are is where your feet are on the ground. It's where you take action from. Maybe you know that I'm Irish, so I can tell this Irish joke. You know, someone says, meets a guy in the street, says, "How do I get to Dublin?" He says, "Oh, I can tell you that," he says, "but I wouldn't be starting from here." So don't be starting from here. But of course, we have to start from where we are. And why did you think of that other place? That has some meaning for you. It has some resonance for you. It has some significance for you. So that's for you to reflect on. It's maybe you have a friend there. It's somewhere you'd love to go. It's somewhere you used to live. It's got some resonance for you. And not only does it have resonance for you, but also, here we are. It tells us something about Theory U and the Presencing Institute. And this was one of the things that impressed me about it when I first had contact with Theory U and the Presencing Institute, which is really a global endeavor. So that impressed me. I thought it's based in the US, as I'll tell you in a moment, but it's the whole of the globe. If I could take you to that moment when I first came across this, it was a moment of some struggle. It was almost exactly 4 years ago. It was 4 weeks next week at the end of June. 2 things happened within 2 days. One is that there was the EU referendum and the United Kingdom decided to leave the EU. And that was a moment of great trauma for me. It was awful. But just the day before that, we suffered a bereavement in our wider family. So that was just a shock. A young man just suddenly died. So it put me into a moment of silence, really. And that moment of silence lasted 2 months, 3 months. I just was really quite stunned by those 2 things that happened. And then a few months later, September, October, I came across Theory U. And what impressed me was, on the one hand, that it's global and it's talking about action. It's talking about awareness-based collective action, doing things together. But also, importantly, and this really struck me, this quote, I'll let you read it for yourself. And I'm wondering, I think everybody is, we've got nobody sort of on the walk over the hills who can't see the screen. I'll read it for you as well. That the success of an intervention depends on the inner condition of the intervener. There may be other factors as well, but so what goes on inside me affects actually what happens in the intervention that I make. So we may know that as facilitators, we may know that as presence. Our presence in a room has a big impact. So as we make an intervention, what goes on for us inside has a big impact. So I thought this combines for me this 2 things, one of which is the desire to take action, see the world a better place, do good stuff, but also the spiritual side of me, the side which sits quietly, the side of me which is really quite private and quiet and silent. I thought it spoke to most of those two things. Also, I just noticed that it was well organized. I noticed that when there were sessions, they were just well facilitated. I thought, blimey, I could learn something from that. I could really learn something from how I see people facilitating and what they're doing. So it really struck me. The Presencing Institute is based in the US, at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And let me read this quote to you. They say, "We believe it's possible to create results that serve the well-being of all." We believe it's possible to create results that serve the well-being of all. And you think, well, yeah, of course, we all want the well-being of all. But actually what happens? What happens is that collectively, 7.2 billion of us on the planet, somehow collectively are creating results that nearly nobody wants. Ecological damage, wars, all the things that we can think of, all the strife that there is, somehow we're creating stuff that I would say nobody wants, or probably nearly nobody wants. So I was impressed by that as an ambition, really, that it's possible for us to do that. So I thought, I want to be part of this endeavor. I want to be part of this. Let me ask you a question now. This is stepping in. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to turn your cameras off. And then I'm going to ask you 2 questions. And the first question, and if you answer the question as yes, then I would like you to turn your camera on. And then I'll ask the second question. So please turn your cameras off, but keep your headphones in, or else you won't know what's going on. Just turn your cameras off. Everybody, please just turn your cameras off, yeah? If you really know nothing about Theory U and the Presencing Institute, you know the name, you've got a sense there might be something interesting, that's why you've turned up to this event. But if you really know nothing about it, then please now turn your camera back on. We'll see whose cameras come back on. Wonderful. And let's just click over the curious. Wonderful. Fabulous. Fabulous. That you're in exactly the right place. So that's good. Now, if I ask those of you, you've just turned your cameras on, please just turn them off again. Thank you. So if nothing else, this session is good practice for your clicking abilities. Click, 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 click. Okay. Now, if you know something about Theory U and the Presencing Institute, then I, in a moment, would like you to turn your camera on. You might have read the book, you might have read half the book, you may have heard a lecture, you may have been on one of the training courses, you may have done something. If you know something about Theory U or Presencing Institute, please now turn your camera back on. Thank you. Now I'd like to ask those of you who know something about it, just to, and we'll take 2 or 3 or 4 comments. What is it that strikes you about it? I've shared with you my experience of the things that happened to me at a time of personal crisis, when I decided to stop working for a few months because it was all just terribly distressing. If you want to speak, then just physically raise your hand, and then Raina and I are going to watch out. Those who are on the screen now and who have seen and know something about Theory U. Is there someone? Yes, please, Lewis.
Yes, I start reading the book, then I got in the site, I made several works on U Theory, then Presencing Institute, and now I'm doing the Gaia.
The Gaia, tell us about the Gaia. I'm on the Gaia as well. Tell us about the Gaia journey, Lewis. This is one of the programs that the Presencing Institute is doing right now. Tell us about it.
Yes, they separate roughly in inhale and exhale. So imagine the things that we must inhale, and we are talking about our self, myself, not myself, myself, exactly. So inhale and exhale, let go. It's according with the theory of you.
Oh, we just lost you a moment there, Lewis. I think someone's turned you off. one moment. Something's happened. If you
I'm on.
There we
I'm
are.
on.
Yeah.
I'm on.
Yeah.
So
we heard you. So inhale, exhale. Yeah. Please tell us a bit more.
Inhale, exhale. Imagine what we have to inhale and to exhale. Talking about who is myself, not myself. Together, myself.
And myself with a capital S. We'll come to that. Yes.
Yes.
So there's myself, and then there's myself, the capital S self. Thank you.
Yes.
And there's about 800 people, I think, on that guide journey, or 1,000 or more. Or many people all over the world. It's been meeting every 2 weeks or thereabouts. And it's building up to a 2-day event on the 10th and 11th of July, which I'm going to. Lewis, I don't know if you are.
Yes, I'm going to.
Good.
Yeah, we'll meet there.
Thank you. We'll meet there with many hundreds or thousands of others. Is there somebody else who would like to contribute and just say your connection and tell us something about it, something that will be of interest to others?
Can I share?
Yes.
Hi,
I don't know.
this is Mahi. Hi, this is Mahi from India. Hi.
From where?
So,
where are you from? India. Very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Theory, you came to me sometime in 2017 when one of my mentors introduced Theory U to me, and we did a lot of presencing theater in the session. What really caught me was the concept, or you can say a metaphor, eye of the needle.
Say that again. I didn't catch.
I said it's called as eye of the needle or through the needle. I'm not able to recall
eye of the middle. Okay.
Eye of the needle.
Yeah.
So it is said, it's mentioned in the book as well, Emerging from the Future, which says that when you, it's a door in Jerusalem, and when camels have to cross through the door, it's a when main gate is closed for this particular city, they have to cross through a small door. And these camels had to shed all the excess baggage which is there. So it's a metaphor for that if you want to go ahead, so you need to leave all the baggages behind.
I understand. So it's a metaphor.
Yeah.
It's about leaving baggages behind. And this is also something, dear friends, that we will be referring to in the next hour and a quarter now, about letting go. Letting go in order to let come, in order to move forward. So leaving the baggages behind, as it's just been put. Is there somebody else, one more person who would like to share? Yes, please. Buko, yeah, please.
Hello, Burcu from Istanbul. Yes.
Istanbul, very good. Apologies for my poor Turkish accent. And then maybe we'll take one more and then we'll move on. Please, what do you know? Tell us something about it.
I got face-to-face with this concept in one of my seminars, which was on artful quarantine. I am working on arts-based learning, and we were making some webinar serials. And we got this theory because we try to make the innovation and creativity to be sound and to be understood with this theory. It's very important, and it's a very collective and community work, and it's very important for creativity, I think, to create something together collectively. And in quarantine days, it worked well for me because we were together, working together and creating something together. And I felt the others' hearts near me, and it was very important for me in quarantine days.
So you're giving us the three of you have spoken, for which thank you. You're really laying out the field of your experience here. You're talking about the connection with the heart, that you felt something. And Maher, you spoke about social presencing theatre, which is one of the approaches, one of the facilitation tools, methods that is used, which briefly speaking is a way of really understanding collectively what is going on inside us individually and playing that out, if I can put it that way. Oh. Just wait for the noise to stop. I was muted. That's good. Thank you. Thank you, Raina. Sorry, I had that screechy noise. So a way of collectively understanding what's going on in the system. So thank you. Is there one other person who would really love to say something? And if not, then we're going to continue. If there is, please.
Yes, I can share a little bit. My name is Judith. I'm from Manila, Philippines. So I came across Otto Scharmer's Theory U when I was looking for answers and explanation to make sense of what's going on around me. So at that particular time, I was getting frustrated with the situation in the country. And I feel like there's a lot of good people, but how come I'm seeing things that are not what I had intended for my country to become. So out of looking for meaning and purpose, and I came across Theory U to help me understand what's going on. And that's when I felt like, yes, now I get it, that I'm part of the system, part of a system that sort of was complicit to the existing order that's taking place outside of me. And it's really transformational in my journey, because I see that I'm not helpless. I helped created that system that I'm seeing the reality right now, and therefore I'm also in a position to do something about it as being part of that system. But that Theory U helped me with that awareness. Thanks.
Thank you. So that's another really, really important part, that we are, of course, all part of the system. Many of us have the tendency to look outside and to blame and to say, well, it's their fault, or if only they did it differently. But to really see, to turn the camera around, turn the telescope around and see our part in that. And that's transformational when you start working on yourself individually or working with groups or organizations, to turn the camera around. So thank you, Judith, for introducing that. Joanna, I think you did have your hand up. Yeah, so yes, please, and then we'll move on.
One sentence. I had the pleasure to experience the social presencing theater with Joe Lambert. And it was amazing because we did it also with our team. So, you know, some things were made visible. So
some things were made visible. Because we're not now going to describe the whole process, but some things were made visible. So some things which were invisible, but were there and were having an influence on things, were made visible. And that's what social presencing theatre can do. It brings things to the surface. So Theory U, yes, is a way of understanding. I think one of Judith, you said it's a way of understanding. And for me, it's a way of understanding this complex world that I'm surrounded by. It's also for me a sort of a map to guide my way. Also, I take it as part of my spiritual practice, because it really helps me with that, to understand when I sit quietly, I can think that I'm not just sitting quietly, but it's something which has an impact more broadly. And it also spurs me to action. And that action is something then that is global. Imagining all the places that you mentioned, the places you are and the places that you referred to, which are in your consciousness somewhere. Imagine even with the, how many, 46 of us here now, imagine all those lines joining up the world and the connectedness that there is even from us in this group now. But if you multiply that by 100, 200, 300, into 1,000, into hundreds of thousands, and imagine that connectedness, this is where awareness-based collective action really, I think, starts becoming very powerful and pretty interesting. It's almost like a third superpower, but it's one which is happening from bubbling up from underneath, from some essence, some core within us. Thank you. Would everybody like to put their, thank you for so patiently keeping your cameras off. If you'd like to make yourself visible again, then please do. If you prefer to stay anonymous, then that's also fine. I'd like now to, where are we? Move to here, which is just to describe as best I can, as briefly as I can, what is in this book, which is, I think, the third or fourth iteration of this, and it's a very short version. The previous version was a hardback, I think it was 500 pages or something. This is a short version, very readable. You will, I'm sure, want to stay to the end of this session, and if you have something else to pay attention to, then of course pay attention to that. But if you have to go, please say goodbye in the chat. Don't just leave, because it's like be a deflating balloon. Don't just leave, just say farewell and you need to go, and why. Because at the end, this book is going to be given away. I'm going to give this book. I'm going to, and I'll tell you about how I'm going to decide that, and I'm going to post it to you. So someone will get a copy of this wonderful book. Yeah. So what I'm saying is full credit to this book and Otto Sharma and his team and the wonderful work that they've been doing over many years. So let me give you a little bit of a feeling about this. This is quite a crowded sheet, which is why I'm going to walk through it slowly. And also, you will be getting all of this in what is sent to you after this gathering. Not immediately after, I'll pull things together tomorrow. So this is the you, and this is a direction of travel. So it starts with downloading. In fact, I've written downloading on the wrong side. Downloading. So this is, downloading to me is, you come home, you're tired, you sit and you turn the news on and you just sit there and you just receive. You're just in receive, uncritical mode. But as you start traveling down the you start seeing. And you start seeing through your habitual way of responding. You may have a habit of doing things one way, but then you start seeing some truth beyond that. So you start seeing the habits that you have and letting go of them, and start really seeing what really is there, the truth. And you start being willing to suspend some of your judgments. So at this point of seeing, you'll think of letting go of your habits, letting go of your habitual way of seeing, and suspending your judgments. And you may then move to the point of sensing. And the point of sensing is where you move your perception from being predominantly outside, external focus to them, to inviting an inner reflection as well, and really giving that time and place to redirect your attention from the outside to the source. And that may mean that you do meditation, or it may be that you go for walks, or it may be that you have times with friends and really reflect on what's going on for you. So that you hold, of course, we live in the world, so you have an external perspective, you know what's going on, but you are redirecting and sensing what may be going on inside. So it's a redirection. The presencing is a still place. And the title of the Presencing Institute comes from two words put together, because presencing is not an English word, it's a made-up word. And it comes from presence, being present. As facilitators, we are present in the room. But also from sensing. So from sensing what the future is inviting us to do. So you may have heard the expression, leading from the emerging future. So you have a sense of what the future is inviting you to do. And it's a still place where also you let go of what is no longer needed. You let go of what is dying. You let go of what is exhausted. You let go of those structures, habits, frames, all the rest, which have had their time. They may have served you in the past, but it serves you no longer. This morning it was raining. If I went out, I'd have had a coat on to keep dry. It's not raining now. I can let go. I can let go of my raincoat. It's no longer needed. I don't carry on wearing it when it's no longer needed. And as I start getting a sense of what is there, what the future is inviting me to do and to be and to become, and my highest potential, my highest possibility, I start crystallizing that sense of the future, which initially is blurry, hazy, unclear, unknown, but you just know there's something there, starts taking a bit of a shape and a form in your thinking, and which then means that you can then move to the point of prototyping. You can start thinking, well, actually, maybe I could try something here. So in other methodologies, of course, prototyping is there as well, of just, just fail faster, just get on and do something and see how it works. So enacting, do stuff. But you're doing stuff not from here, but you're doing it from the source. You're listening to what you may have touched in your presencing moment. So you're moving really from ego to eco, ego to eco. So ego, myself, to eco, ourselves, and the collective. And you're touching that collective space and acting from that collective space. And then come to a point of performing and embodying. So it's then part of you, this new position, the new space that you've moved to, informed by the essence, the source, is something that you embody. It's become fully part of you. And in one of the contributions a moment ago, there was reference to self, my, next word, self, capital S, self. I think, Lewis, it was you, wasn't it? So if we take as that self, my highest future possibility, that you then fully embody that. So this is a journey. This is, days past, weeks past, months past. And in my experience of the sort of transitions that I've been through, and indeed a transition that I'm going through now, having just been through a significant birthday, this takes some time. And some stuff which is now clear to me, I first got an inkling of, a sense of last September, and now things are just becoming clearer. In a moment, I'm going to say about absencing, and then I will be asking any of you to tell me what you sense, what you feel, what you see, what you hear. Both those who have some experience of this, and also, and importantly, those who come to this absolutely for the first time. I'll say a bit more about that in a moment. I will be inviting your thoughts and contributions. So now we turn it around the other way. Let's think about absencing. Again, this is not an English word. I don't think you'd find it in the dictionary. It's a made-up word, of course, from absent, being absent. You are not in connection. You're not in touch with yourself, with society, with nature. You're absent. You are disconnected. So you may start from the same point of downloading. But rather than going through the you, the way that I just showed, you decide, and this is a choice, to deny. You say there is one truth. We see this in religions. Maybe we see this in some social movements. There is one truth, and I've got it. And I'm going to beat you until you accept my sense of the truth. You're stuck in one truth. This is just how it is. And you may de-sense. You take that feeling away, so that you don't have a feeling for other people, which means, of course, you can do bad things to them because you don't have feeling for them. You don't feel their pain, if I can put it that way. You don't feel their pain because you are de-sensed. And with both of those, you get to the point of absencing. You are not present. You are not in connection. And then you get into some action over here. Yeah, you blame. And you can do bad things to people. We all know the many bad things that one person can do to another. I remember my father, who died many years ago, spoke of the Second World War. He was in India, and he said this only came out when I was really adult. And he said, he was just so appalled by the thing that one man could do to another. And he spoke about flamethrowers, terrible things that he'd seen, that the things that can happen to another because we blame them. And ultimately that leads to destruction. Destruction of the planet, destruction of relationships, destruction of trust, and ultimately destruction of ourselves. Now, we have a choice, because we can all start at the point of downloading here. And we have a choice, and that's a conscious choice. We can go on the journey this way or around that way, or we can hover in the middle, which many of us do, we're inclined to do, because we're not quite sure. We don't want to be this kind of nasty people here, but maybe we don't find the courage to really go through the you, which does require some inner reflection, time, and probably some discomfort in what we discover before we come into the daylight and the sun, which is now shining here in London. I think I'll say one more thing, which I was going to bring in later, but I think I'll say it now. And then I'm going to ask for a moment's pause, a moment's silence, and then ask for some observations from any of you about what I've just been saying and what you've been hearing from that. I'll show this now, and I may show it again later, because I think it's a very clear exposition of where we are. And this is not my drawing, this is from the Presencing Institute. So you see here, there's a point here, this is where we are. And this is where we imagine part of us thinks we could possibly be. Over here, these sunlit uplands. Wouldn't it be wonderful if? And it would be wonderful if, because here, everything is crumbling. We look around us, we see institutions collapsing, we see struggle, we see confusion, we see all sorts of things. We see UK leaving the EU, you know, so some of these things come pretty close to home for us personally. So we see collapsing here, so we think we want to be here. This model invites you to take the journey through the you, not just somehow hoping to be there and doing it artificially, but really traveling through that you. And that's the position of highest future possibility. And because that highest future possibility is one which is fed from the source, it's fed from the essence, it is also one which will then engage us in awareness-based collective action. Because if we're all doing that, if all 40 something of us on this, 46 on this gathering, imagine we all now start acting from that place. And then another times 100, times 1,000, times 1,000,000. We all start acting from that place. My act of faith, my belief is, and indeed the model is, that then there is an intelligence which comes forward, and that then things start working for the planet, for organizations, and for groups and the society we live in. And lastly, before I will ask for comments, then this is important, this matters to us as facilitators, because what do we do as facilitators? We try to help the group to find its highest future possibility. So this is a spiritual practice, an individual practice for each of us, but it's also a practice as facilitators that as we bring our presence into a group, that we invite them to find the best position that they can move towards in their endeavor of whatever it is. I'll say more about that later. So let's just have a moment of silence. And there's my home phone ringing, which I'm not going to answer. So let's just pause a moment. Phone has stopped ringing. And I invite you, what do you sense, what do you feel, what do you see? Let's have a few comments. And I would invite you to do this in a particular way. What do you sense, feel, see? In one breath, please. Which means you take a deep breath, and then you answer as long as you can in your one deep breath. If you've got big lungs, you can probably speak for 30 seconds. Smaller lungs like me, it's probably 20 seconds. Is there someone who would like to make a contribution? Please put your hand up, and then Raina and I are going to, and Raina will shout if you see someone who wants to contribute. And if you are not, if we can't see you, then we will keep an eye on the chat. I see there are 70 messages. And I should say I haven't seen any of those, but I will look at them later.
So can I say anything?
Yes, please. Who is that speaking?
This is Nidhi from India.
Nidhi from India, please. Let's hear you. Okay. And can you take a deep breath and speak in one breath? Just try it and see. Just try it and see.
Okay. So I'm going through a journey of my career change right now.
Yes.
where I was a trainer in corporate for almost 7-8 years, and now I'm going into a completely full-time dedication to coaching and training, because this is something which I'm really passionate about, and my heartbeat keeps on going up and down from time to time, because I think, have I made the right decision? But I'm also very passionate, so that anxiety is always taking over me. But sometimes I feel very calm, like I'm like very happy that okay, I am able to do something. I'm taking charge of my life, right? So that's my feeling right now. And what I see is I'm attending a lot of learning sessions right now. I can see in this corporate, a lot of people have been very generous in opening, webinars, and I'm seeing those people, and I'm connecting with a lot of people from different parts of the world. And right now I'm seeing you smiling and being so passionate about conducting this session. So yes, I'm very happy about it. And is this one breath?
Thank you, Nidhi. So you have very big lungs to be able to say all of that, and I know you took your breath in and out, and a lot of this is about breathing in and breathing out. As Lewis said, with the Gaia journey, it's structured on breathing in and breathing out. And you're at this point of transition, and many of us are at points of transition, and we've made those transitions more or less successfully. So thank you for sharing that. Is there somebody else who would like a sense, a feel, or just something that touches you with this? And if you can do that with breathing in and then speaking just as long as you can before you have to take another in-breath. So you're just speaking like I am now, which is probably about 15 or 20 seconds or so before you start collapsing onto the floor. Is there someone who would like to?
This is Rajkumar from
Please,
India.
Please. Yes, the floor is yours, sir. Deep breath. And now speak.
I feel clarity. I sense clarity with the theory you, and I feel more hopeful. I see you.
Thank you. You've run out of breath. You did very well, thank you. You can have another go in a minute if you like. Is there anybody else who would like to take on the challenge of the one breath challenge? Of breathing in and then speaking.
Try.
Maria,
please. Maria. So is that Judith or Maria? Sorry.
Maria can go first.
Okay. Okay, Maria, please. Please go first. Was that Maria? I don't see you, but please go first. If not, then...
I can go, Judith?
Yes. Okay, yes, please.
Okay, let me take a deep breath.
Yes, please do. Yeah, take a very deep breath.
I sense people coming together, wanting to do something good and amazing.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Thank you. Let's just hear that for a moment. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Something good and amazing. Please, please. One breath and you're on mute. So you don't want to waste your one breath with being on mute.
Yeah.
That would be unfortunate, wouldn't it? Please.
Yeah, one
so
breath.
Nice deep breath and then...
Yeah. Thank you very much for making me breathing. And I saw your metaphor for two mountains. And when I close my eyes and breathe the air, I saw myself just between these mountains flying and feeling the wind. Yes, it was very good.
Feeling the wings. You were flying. Wow.
Yeah, I was flying one mountain's peak to others because you show the metaphor of you from two mountains.
One to
and
the
I
other.
was flying in between.
Wow, cool.
Yeah,
cool.
It was very good. Yeah, thank you.
Sounds very nice. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. Let's hear any other sensing, feeling, seeing, hearing, and then I'll continue a little further with some more input. We're now pretty much halfway through our time together. Is there somebody else who would like to add something? Just pause a moment. So I think I hear nothing, or did I hear someone?
Yeah.
Joanna, I think.
Yeah.
Joanna.
I was a bit confused to distinguish between to sense and to feel. So I'm just going to tell you, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I sense cold air, I feel calm, and I see beautiful people.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So what we have here is I think 5 or 6 of us have spoken our reactions of a life-changing experience of flying through mountains, of people coming together, doing cool things, beautiful people, and so on. So this is what it touches inside us. So this touches on my internal world and then engages me in doing something. So this is part of a personal practice, but it's also a practice of change. And would I say revolution? Well, it feels a bit like revolution. It feels like really taking a very firm action. So as facilitators, this is something I think that we can really benefit from, because we're trying to bring about change with groups and organizations, and a beneficial change. And it may be that in our work, in doing that work, there are some things that we don't touch. And because we don't touch, the change doesn't really happen. The positive flow doesn't really happen because we're just doing part of the job. Let me show you what I mean. And we're now moving to here about divides and the blind spot. Let me explain this little drawing. Youth theory talks about the 3 divides. Well, it talks about many things, and I should have said perhaps right at the beginning what I've done in order to fit this into a 1.5 hour, 1 hour, 25-minute session in which I want your contributions and participation. I've just selected a few of the things that I thought would be the most interesting and would give you the best flavor. Because to some extent, I hope you'll go away hungry from this session, because I hope that it will have whetted your appetite and you will then want to know more. And I will give you the links and so on that you can find out more later. So I just picked out some things, and these 3 divides is one of those things. So an ecological divide, a social divide, a spiritual divide. And it's a divide where at each of those levels, we only see the top of the iceberg. This is my best attempt to draw 3 icebergs. There we are. I didn't go to art school, as you can probably guess. So what we see is just the things on the surface. And there's a suggestion of how can we understand the ecological divide? We can understand the ecological divide that on average, each of us are using up every day 1.5 planets. We're not living in a sustainable way. We know that, and we're all part of that. We're all complicit in that in one way or another. There's an ecological divide between us and the planet we're living in, a divide between us and nature, to the extent to which that we collectively are using up 1.5 planets as we proceed. Now, clearly there's a massive amount of work trying to go into reversing that and changing that, but that's what the current position is. Social divide. There's a social divide. The figure is given, let me show you in the book. One of you lucky people will get, here we are, yeah. On this page, the social divide can be summed up by a number, and that number is 8. 8, and it's written in a book, so I assume it's true. It seems extraordinary to me, but still, 8 billionaires own as much as half of mankind combined. Yes, it is true. A small group of people that you can fit into a minivan, 8 people, owns more than the so-called bottom half of the world population, which is 3.8 billion people. A social divide, a wealth divide, an income divide, an opportunity divide. So we're all part of that. We're all complicit. We're all somewhere on that spectrum. I guess that none of us are the 8, the 8 people who are so wealthy. Probably none of us are in the 3.8 at the bottom. I don't know. We're all bouncing around somewhere in the middle. But there is that divide. There's also a spiritual divide. The spiritual divide And this is back to this image here. Between myself, one word, myself, where I am now, and my highest future possibility. Just imagine if all of us always achieved our highest future possibility, the thing which inspires us, draws us, the thing which really speaks to us, the thing that we think that we were put here on the planet Earth to do, the thing which draws upon all our strengths and skills. Just imagine if somehow everybody in the world was doing that all the time, what a different world we would live in. But also just imagine that each of us on this call were to do that, and that we'd be able to move from being where we are now to being something which is fully fulfilling for us, which takes us to that point of living our full richness. Because we've been through the you, we've done that work of touching that still place, that moment of reflection, and getting a hazy sense of how it could be, of where we might move to. Just imagine how that would be. And at the other end of that spectrum, if you don't do that at all, then you take your own life. The figure that's given in the book is, I think, 800,000 people who take their own lives, I think, in the world every year. I'd have to check. But vast numbers of people for whom it is so distressing. Their current life is so distressing from what they would aspire to. They can't stand the tension anymore. They can't stand the poverty. They can't stand the lack of fulfillment, and they take their own life. So there are these three divides. As facilitators, we operate here. Processes, we know all about that. We're good at that. We study it, we practice, we learn from each other. We know about process. What are organizations, companies, charities, civil society organizations? They're interested in results. They want to do something. What is often not touched is the source. It's what's underneath that in this image. It's here, the source. So what you see is this, and we as facilitators are very good at operating under the waves. We're very good at that. That's why people hire us to do it, because we can operate at this level. We help them with their processes, and they think we do magic because we somehow can engage with them at that level. Or maybe some of us are coaches and we can help people listen to what they wouldn't otherwise listen, or see what they wouldn't otherwise see. The challenge for us now, and the challenge for me as well, is to operate from that source level, which then it massively enriches the contribution that we can make to our groups and the organizations we're working with, because then they're seeing the whole system. They're seeing the whole way of working. They're seeing themselves as a whole. I think one of the contributions earlier was about the whole system. And I brought a prop with me. Here's a prop. There we are. What's this? This is a telescope. Let me see if I can get it on the screen. Yeah, it's a telescope. So I can see if I can look down this, look into my camera. It's a very big telescope. We've had this in our family for some years. It doesn't actually work very well as a telescope, but it's a very fine object. Imagine that we invite ourselves and organizations to bend the telescope, to be able to bend this in the middle, so we are looking back at ourselves, that we invite the group to look back at itself, the organization to look back at itself, so that it can really see the part that it is playing in its development of its future, and the part that each of us individually are playing in the way that we create the world around us. I'll put this back in our living room later. We have it there. We've never actually ever used it. This is the first time that I've used it for probably decades, so I'm very glad.
Martin, I think Raj Kumar is raising a hand. I think he has a question.
Thank you, please.
And Rangan has one.
Very good. And then we're going to go into groups, and it's five to the hour. Yeah. Please.
Rina, that was before when I wanted to speak with one breath. That is done. Sorry.
Right. So you've done that. Rangan, that's good. Thank you. Rangan, did you want to speak?
Actually, I was just thinking those three divides.
Yes.
Spiritual divide, the number is 800,000, if I'm not wrong. It's so
I think
sad.
that's what the book said. That's what the book said, yeah. Yeah.
And would it be a result of the first divide with nature and divide with social, divide with from others? Perhaps they might be the reason of this spiritual divide. This is what I'm thinking. Just wanted to share.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, what's my reflection on that? That I would see these as completely interconnected. And what I know is when I go into nature or into my little garden here, then it's nourishing for me and it helps me reflect and think. If I don't go into nature, I wouldn't say that's the cause of the individual suffering, but I think the three things work together. That's in a way why I've drawn, and in the book why they're drawn that way, that they are connected. For our purposes of understanding, we put them as separate, but it's all connected. So thank you for highlighting that. We can somehow try to pull these things together. Thank you. We're going to have some time in groups in just a moment. Is anybody who would like to say anything before we go further?
Would you like to give any further directions before we go into groups?
I would. I definitely would. I definitely would. Because where are we? About here. So do you hear a whisper? And what I mean by that is there something, one of the Presencing Institute terms was tugging at your sleeve. Something where you feel, from what you've been hearing here, you think, oh, maybe I could do that. Wouldn't it be good to do that? Maybe a little bird speaking in your ear. Something where you just have a sense of something that might be the future speaking to you. Because this is, so it's not, how would I put it? It's from this point, the deeper point, that the messages may come. So if you're listening to that essence, is there some message that you think might be coming to you? It might be your little bit of that fundamental. And that's the question. So it's really an opportunity to talk about your reflections on what you're hearing. We will have 9 or 10 minutes, maybe, yes, slightly less than that. And Rainer is going to put...
Yeah, it's going to be a little less than that.
Okay, so there are some rules here. Make sure everybody gets a turn. You might want to do it alphabetically when you find yourself in the room, and just jump straight in. Say, yes, for me, the thing that I think I'm being drawn to for the future, my highest future possibility, it might be around this, it might be around that, I don't know. But just explore. And you might go around the group of 3 of you a couple of times. So just speak briefly, and then the second person, and then the third person. And we'll send you a message when we're inviting you back, and I'll say a little bit more.
Okay, so enjoy it.
I hope that's okay. Enjoy. So, Rengen, I'm still, Rainer, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yep,
no, yeah. I was going to be put into a group, but I've decided not to go into a group. Is that the right thing? Is that the right thing to decide? So let's keep an eye on the time. So I think we're okay for time, just about.
Yep, exactly. So if we end the groups in 5 minutes, it will be perfect. I think we'll do it a bit earlier. Or we can just give them 7 minutes if you wish. And I
think 7 minutes. 7 minutes, yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I think then I can do the other things quite quickly. Give me some feedback. How do you, we've got Avani and also Shalaka.
And nobody was in my room. Nobody was in my room. And
and you came back. Oh, well, so Shalaka and Butchu, do I pronounce your name correctly? Can you hear each other?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, then you could have the conversation here, and we will hear, but we could just put our headphones down.
Yeah, please do.
Should we do that? Yeah. So is it 2 of you or 3 of you now
Or
in
we
this?
can join other rooms also.
I think just continue here. Shalaka, can you hear? And you're on mute.
Avani?
Shalaka and Avani, can you hear? You're on mute. Avani, can you hear? Shalaka.
Yes, I can.
Okay, so why don't you start the conversation, and Raina and I are going to take our headphones out like that. So if you find yourself in this main room, then please count this as a small group.
Yes,
And we're not
because I was
listening.
alone. Yeah, because I was alone in
We're
my
not
room.
listening.
Yeah.
Hi,
Hello,
Kala.
Kala.
Avni here. And hi, Buku.
Hello. How are you? How many
Doing
of
good.
us are here? 3 of us.
3 of us, yeah.
Okay. We were talking about what whispers us, I think, as far as I understood. It sometimes comes to me with messages. For example, I need a message to give a decision, to make a decision, and suddenly something appears, some signs or something, and I got the message from the universe. Not a whisper, but I am getting the messages to decide something. What about you? No messages, no whispers?
No. So for me, after listening to what Martin said, you know, it's a very beautiful thing for me to reflect on my meditational practice. You know, when your meditation practice, now you have some kind of, what you say, a framework to follow. You know, so it's something that was so abstract earlier, right? Today just gave it some framework. So exactly you know where you are. You know, so that is something, you know, so I want to dig more deeper into theory. Right? So I see a framework kind of a thing. You know, so I can now place myself, where am I? So you know, when you're talking about mindfulness or your meditation, right? You know, when you have that framework, you come to know that where are you exactly. So that's the whisper I'm trying to understand.
Very good. What about Shalaka or Sonali, Avani, the others?
Well, yes, you know, I agree with what you also mentioned, that, you know, there are these signs, you know, that sort of you can sense, you can feel them, and then you start seeing them, you know, like a whisper that's there, you know, like the little bird trying to convey something to you.
Avani, you are not listenable. Your voice has gone.
That was all I said.
Ah, okay. Okay then. And what about the others?
Shalaka, are you there?
Excuse me, I should go and open my door. It's ringing. Yes, I came. Nobody else talked about it? And what kind of whispers are you taking?
So if you say whispers, in the sense, for me, it's a metaphor that is telling me to go dig more deeper into what Martin just spoke about, the fourth framework. Right? So it is just kind of a pull that's getting me to say, okay, you know, you need to explore this more. You know, we know so many frameworks, we know so many theories, right? So I would want to explore this more. So that's the calling kind of thing, you know, that's for me.
Mm-hmm. And I think ecology is the best one, because when you go to the nature, it makes you better, I think. compared to others, ecology makes me more inspired and more deep, I think, deeply thinking.
For me, if my mind is running with a lot of thoughts, whether I'm in ecology or in a quiet place, I'll be surrounded by people. So for me, it doesn't make so much of a difference. So I can be just quiet and amongst noise, right? Or I can be really noisy when there's nothing around. So it's just up here for me.
Then maybe you should be in between the people, social part, yeah, to decide, yes.
Yes, sometimes it is the chaos that leads to cosmos, as we say.
Oh, Avani, yeah. And where are you coming from? Where are you connecting from?
India.
India. And Avani?
She's from India too.
From Mumbai, India, yes.
Ah, Indians, yeah, okay. I am from Turkey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Waiting for you. If you can come, it's a little bit difficult nowadays, unfortunately. Yes, we finished, I think, but I don't know.
Yeah, probably we did.
Yeah. Martin is looking at us. And I think our talk is now being recorded. Not the others, only ours. Okay.
You will be a good sample to the group work.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you for this.
Yeah. Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Welcome back to this main room.
Thank you.
As a participant in these breakout groups, I always find the ending is a little bit brutal sometimes. It says you have 60 seconds and then you just get cut off. So if that happened to you, I'm sorry, that's just the technology. And we would have been a bit more gentle if we were in a room together. And maybe one day we will be in a room together. In a moment, I'm going to ask or suggest that we do some reflective journaling and some reflective writing. And I've got some guide questions for that. But before we, so then that's where you can capture some of the things that you've now been saying in your small groups. If you want to put something in the chat, of course, feel free if you want to share that with other participants on this call. But there will also be an opportunity for you to capture that in just a moment. But before so doing, I wanted to say a few words about listening, because this is something in the book, and as we know, is so important and is so little practiced. We may hear, but we don't really listen. So I thought it would be worthwhile just to give a little bit of the sense of the Euro theory, thinking about the 4 levels of listening. So the first level is here. You'll see the red spot in the middle of the circle. Imagine that you're in a room, the shutters are down, everything is turned off, and all you're doing is watching slides and pictures from your own life and from your own circle, from your own friends. You don't move outside your own circle. So this is what many of us do much of the time, that we are just hearing feedback, our own feedback. So this is one level of listening. People think they're listening, but they're in their own bubble. We know that. The second level is maybe that you move from here to the window. So I move to the window. We have some background noise. Can you hear me okay? Can someone give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Yeah, I see some nods. Yeah, okay, thank you. So you move to the window and you look out of the window from your own little bubble of a room, and you see the facts, you see what's happening outside, but it doesn't affect you. You notice it, but it doesn't affect you. Now, this is a very good kind of listening if you're a scientist, because scientists do this. They look for evidence which actually disproves their theory, which may take them in a new direction. So I'm not saying there's anything bad about that. But if we're looking to be transformation agents, if we're looking to be facilitators who can help groups really move forward, we need to do more than just going to look out the window. We may move to the third position. This is 1, this is 2. We may move to a third position, empathetic listening. So we can somehow get into the position of the person that, or the people or the group that we're with. This is a wonderful thing, to be empathetically listening, so that what you see is from this position. We're managing to get into their shoes. We're managing to understand what it is like for them. And we're seeing our situation or the bigger situation from their position, number 3. So there's nothing particularly new in those 1, 2, 3 positions. But the U theory is giving a 4th. And the 4th is called generative listening. And the generative listening is something that sits underneath all of this. Maybe it sits here somewhere. And which is where that in a situation with a client, with another person, with yourself, you're listening to the source of knowledge. And you're prepared to let go, not only of your own favored, comfortable positions, or indeed what you see out of the window, or indeed what you're empathizing with, but you're finding a new position. It generates a new kind of thinking, and it generates a new perspective. So the book speaks quite a bit about that and about the power of generative listening. So there is a lot more that could be said, but I wanted to share that with you. I will, in what we send, I'll put a link to Otto Sharma's YouTube video for about 5 minutes, which explains exactly this. So you can take a look at that. It's a 5 minutes video, which describes it very well. There is also quite a lot of, when you look into it further, you'll see a lot of lovely images. And this is generative scribing, which is a whole other story, which I'm not going to talk about now because we're not going to have time. But when you go into the Presencing Institute and that whole world, you'll see a lot of wonderful images, which is generative scribing, which is a development of, what do you call it? You know, when you're visual recording, it's a generation of that, a further generation of that, it seems to me. We're, with 15 minutes to go, I would invite you to take a pen and a paper if you have one. If you have a journal, that's fine, or just get a pen and a paper and to do a little bit of structured thinking. I'm going to show you on the screen, which I'll share now, if I'm allowed to. Am I allowed to share screen? Yes, I think so. There we are. So this is one of the practices. And there are 17 guided journaling questions. Clearly, I'm not now going to go through 17, but they are available on the website. You can see those. It's all freely available. I've picked out 5, which I think would fit the session that we've had. But I just wanted to show this so you know where it's coming from. So I haven't made this up. These are ones that, come from that source. So the first one, and I'll just give you a minute or so after each one to think and to make a note if you so wish, or to do whatever you need to do to be able to conclude this session well from what you've heard, from what you've taken in, from your group conversations, and from anything that I've said. So the first question is about frustration. Frustration is a wonderful thing because it may be an indicator to you of something that needs to change. So the question is, what is there about your current work or personal life that frustrates you the most? What about your current work or personal life frustrates you the most? Number 2. Number 2 is energy and what may be emerging for you. So energy, first of all, what are the most vital sources of energy for you? The things that you love, the things that when you're engaged or doing that or being that or in that frame, that energizes you, that feeds you, that nourishes you? What is your most vital sources of energy, the things that plug you into the mains and bring you alive? What are those things? Could be anything, just whatever comes to mind. Let your pen do the talking, as it were, the writing. Just operate from your hand. Number 3, and there are 5 of these. Number 3 is when you were a young man or a young woman, in your teenage or in your young adulthood, and when you thought about the future, all of which lay ahead of you, what did you imagine that you might do with your life? And is there something from that which still rings true for you? Was there some element of that aspiration at that point that still is alive for you? Maybe in a different form, but is there something in that aspiration, that energy, that eager endeavor that is still live for you, that still rings true, that still chimes? Number 4, and we go right to the end of your life. You still have your faculties, you can still think, and you're looking back on your life. What footprint is it that you now imagine that you would like to leave? When you get to that point, that you would look back, and you would look back with a smile. You would look back with a smile of satisfaction that you've achieved what it is that you always dreamt of achieving, and now you're looking back, you have no days left. What would that be? That footprint that you would leave. And as a second part of that same question, what advice would you give from that future position to your present self? So from that future position, in your last days, reflecting back on the footprint that you've left, what advice would you give yourself from that position to where you are now? And fifthly and lastly, letting go. What is it that it now wants to die? What is it that has had its time in your life? Personal life, professional life, it's been great, but now you need to let it go, like me, letting go of the raincoat because it no longer is raining. Is there something that has had its time and that you need to let go? And which you may find difficult to let go, but it's there and it needs to go. Is there something? That's the fifth and last question. And so now in our last few minutes, as we come to close, I'll be handing back to Raina in a moment, who I think will make a few closing comments. But before we do that, I would like to open to anyone who would like to say anything just to wrap up this session. And as you do so, be thinking, you may want to speak about this, or it may be anything. Is there anything in what you're currently doing that looks like it might be the seed of something that may come in the future? You know, there may be something there already that's only this little big that is wanting to grow. You may see something already in your life that you think would grow. And there may be something, there may be something that you want to do in the next few days, the next few weeks to move that forward. So just be thinking about that as we close. There we are. Please, yes, Rajesh. Please, the floor is yours.
Your concept of the three icebergs has really moved me. Primarily for two reasons. One is that it is speaking about the ecology, social, and the spiritual evolution in the mankind. Okay, and I believe that because of the non-congruence between the three, the imbalance between the three is what we are actually experiencing today. And that provides a significant amount of work for me personally to actually really think about how do we create some balance there which will actually help every individual human being and the organizations at micro level to actually rise up to the occasion and save this planet. So that's what I want to share with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm looking at one screen and I think Raina is looking at the other, but of course we might miss you. So if you're just start, if we don't see you raising your hand.
Hi, Martin. I'm Jane.
Oh, very good. Jane, thank you for just jumping in. Thank you.
Hi there. First of all, I'm so sorry because I joined late. But I just want to say a huge thank you. It's been a really insightful and inspiring session. I did come to this without knowing anything at all about it and feel totally inspired. I'm in the world of major international conferences. And we are moving towards wanting to make them more impactful in the destination where they're held. So like Rajesh was saying, the ecology, social and spiritual side, I've never looked at it in that way. We talk a lot about societal impact and making a difference in the environment, but it's really spoken to me and it makes me feel more around it's about the actual people that come rather than the organization that hosts the meeting. So if we can turn it back to what the purpose and the drive of the individuals and trying to create opportunities that help these three, I think that would be an amazing move. So I feel hugely inspired. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. One or two more comments and then I'll say about the book, what's going to happen with the book, and then pass to Raina, please.
Oh,
yes. Okay,
yeah,
someone jump in.
Okay, yeah, this is Nidhi. So I especially relate very much to your last question, basically, for my life, I've always felt like there was a compulsion to abide with society's norms, whatever my family is expecting out of me, whatever people are expecting out of me. And I have made some decisions which, I kind of regretted. And I also blame them for some of those decisions because they were wrong. But, looking at this model, I completely understand that, either I can go into a sensing mode or either I can go into I can blame others and I can completely become absent, right? Because if I keep blaming others, I will go into a very negative or a very, immune mode. You're not passionate about anything at all. So what you can do is you can just take charge of your life and you can go into a mode where you just leave all that behind. You leave your ego behind and go forward. So I think that's been a wonderful learning for me for, whatever I can associate it to. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Diala would like to go next.
Yep, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Martin, for your sharing. I got insights how we open mind to avoid judgment, open heart to avoid cynicism, and also open will to avoid fear. And also I found from Otto Scharmer said that the quality of the leaders in the 21st century depends on the attention and intentions. And thank you for your sharing today. I'm from Jakarta, Indonesia. I'm very happy to be here and hope you always be the theory master practitioners. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for introducing those points, which actually I just realized that I missed out. You know, the open mind, the open heart, the open will, which you just referred to, is closed or open. We have a choice. We have a choice. So thank you for introducing that into our dialogue. One more and then we must finish.
Yes. Yes.
Please.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. Thank you, Reina, for this. And Martin, I think your pen and paper approach is fantastic.
Not my approach. It's not my approach.
Well, your approach with the way you did it.
Okay, I own that. That was my approach. Yeah,
it's quite good. No, the point I want to make is about the whole spirit part of working with companies. Just I think it was Jane. Sorry, was it Jane Cunningham who said about working with people before working with the organizations, and that's an approach I have in my job. So that's an approach. It's something I feel that I work with people, and behind them is a company that pays me, and I don't really worry about this massive structure. But I think I think what I find today is a pity that about spirit and the spiritual side of the companies. I think it's something complicated to deal with. If I go in, start talking to a client and say I'm going to start dealing with spirit, I'm not going to get the job. I'm in France, by the way.
You're in France. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's something we all want to talk about, can talk about, but don't want to talk about.
Thank you. And I agree with you that there really is a longing. I think there is a longing for that.
Massive longing.
But we don't know quite how to talk about it.
No.
And at that point, I think I'm sorry to cut you off, David.
Okay,
we do need to finish. We should keep to time as facilitators. We know that's a good idea. In the message you got this morning, it said, watch out for these phrases. I've just gone through and I think we've covered pretty well everything that was in that and in the invitation. I hope you found it useful to you. And I would be very happy to continue the dialogue. If anybody on this call wants to just mail me and have a conversation, I'd be very happy to do that. This book will go to the person who has the birthday closest to today. Does anybody have a birthday today or yesterday or tomorrow or this week? Because that's we'll then sell them. Who's got a birthday?
Mine's today. I'm joking.
28 July.
July 13. I'm July 13.
July. Okay. Well,
I'm June 10.
June the 10th. Any advance on June the 10th? Today's the 18th. Any advance?
26th.
26th.
Yeah.
June. Oh, that's both the same. Okay, so you're tied. I'm going to have to send 2 books then. Yeah. I'll send 2 books. I've got 2 books. I'll send 2 books. Anybody else? Anybody closer than the 10th or the 26th?
Can take rebirth for this count.
Pardon?
No, I was just kidding. I was just saying, do wedding anniversaries count?
Oh, no, they don't, unfortunately. No, that's the next session. That's the next session. Okay, so if the two of you would like to either mail me your postal address or put it in the chat if you're happy to do that, I'll send you each a book because you're both, I think that's right, isn't it? Yeah, you're both 8 days from now. Yeah, and I got 2 books. I got another one over there. I'll put one in the post to you. That would be my gift to you, your birthday present.
Wow.
Yeah. So just give me your address and I'll do that. There we are. Okay.
Thank you so
Reina, that's my pleasure. My pleasure. Okay, Reina, back to you. I think just to wrap us up.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for this amazing session. It was very inspiring for me too, even though I was a co-facilitator. I learned a lot from you. So it was so nice for me. Thank you. And I just would like to remind you all that next week we will have another facilitation talk, which will be presented by Pamela Lappenbauers from IAF Switzerland. And she will be talking about responding to clients' changing contexts and needs. So if you would like to join us, please simply register from our Eventbrite page. We will be announcing it this Saturday again from our social media accounts. and would love to see you there with us again. And thank you all again for being with us. And thanks, Martin, again and again and again.
My pleasure. I wish you all well.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Rena. Thank you all.
Thank you, Martin.
Let's all say goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Martin.
Fun.
Thank you, Rena.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Good luck. Good luck. Good luck.
Martin, stay behind a little bit if you would.
Thank you, Martin.
Pardon? I'm going to stay on the line. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for being there.
Bye. Thanks a lot, Martin.
Thank you
Look
for
forward
being
for
there.
one more from you.
Yes. Look forward to the next thing. Yeah. Looking forward to get those addresses. Yeah.
Thank you,
Very
Martin.
good.
Pleasure.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Rena.
Pleasure. Pleasure. It's been a real pleasure. Yeah. To be part of this. Well, to do this. Very good.
Thanks, Martin. Wonderful,
Roseanne?
Martin. Namaste. Thank you
Okay,
very much.
Nasi. Nasi, lovely to see you.
So beautiful. I mean, the 5 questions were stunning.
Oh, good. Well, I thought a lot. You know, there's 17 altogether, and I thought,
17 of them, yeah, 5.
which are the ones that I could pick out? Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
ones you picked up were really fantastic. As they say, the seed holds a forest inside that.
There we are.
So, I also noticed in the word that they put farewell there, and your name is hidden in that farewell.
The name is what?
Your name, the second name is there. Farrell is inside the farewell.
Farrell. It's inside the what?
Farewell.
Farewell. Oh, farewell. It's in Farrell.
Yeah,
You're so right.
Farrell is also there.
Farrell is there. Farrell in the farewell. Okay. You are confusing me there. Okay. And look at my nice sunflowers as well. I could have said I grew these from seed. So I could have made something about, you know, I planted the seed and now they've grown to the sunflower. So, but we didn't have time to make that. But this just came out today, just this morning.
Yeah, that's what I meant when you beautiful questions. It's like a seed which grows like a sunflower.
Oh, I hope so.
Okay, see
Thank
you
you.
then. Good night.
See you again.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. And Rosanna, you're doing your wonderful, wonderful drawings at 8 o'clock. No, it's 9:30 in the morning. You're so skilled with that. Oh, you're wonderfully skilled.
Martin, I would love to talk to you
Yes.
once one-on-one more. We resonate a lot on so many things, and I
Yes.
had a lot of aha moments. I work a lot on operating from the source and connecting everybody and on collective consciousness. I practice myself and also spread. I would like to understand from you what are the things that you practice and more about the theory a more deep dive on that. Basically, there was a lot that I know, but you know, there is a gap between knowing and doing. There is a lot that I want to change and transform.
Exactly.
For example, dropping judgment at all times. But I've been, struggling with being in that consciousness for that time or practicing, some reminders every minute. Okay, it works. But then not every time, I have that time or that consciousness of operating from the source. And today in your first, that sensing itself where you said, we download and we get into a habitual this thing. And then I realized, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And I did that. So that gave me the anchor. Basically, I had my aha moment right there. Oh, that is where I be detached.
So I think when those aha moments come, it's also good to be forgiving of ourselves because, we're all the time doing things that we prefer not, or we're stuck in habits. And so, it's not good to beat ourselves up. We can be generous and then we try again. Generous to ourselves and then we try again. Because this is a path, it's a growing, it's a process, isn't it? But I'd be happy to connect. So I could put my